Welcome everybody to the new Sonic Field. I'm Professor Mark Dancigers, and this is our virtual series for New Music New College, where we catch up with alums of New Music New College who are working in new music, experimental music, digital media, the art world generally, and we're featuring some of their works as well as interviews with our alums. And I am so excited today to get to talk to my former student and composer, Dylan Burchett. And Dylan is currently pursuing a doctoral degree at Louisiana State University in experimental music and digital media, which sounds really exciting. So I look forward to talking with Dylan about that. So to kick us off, I will ask Dylan, when did you graduate from New College, and tell us a little bit about what you've been doing since New College?
Yeah, I graduated from New College in 2015. After that, I started an MFA in electronic music and recording media at Mills College in Oakland, California in 2016. I was there for 2 years. After that, I just started here, I guess. I had a couple year gap there where I was working at Meyer Sound in Berkeley, California.
So after getting your master's degree, you worked at a recording studio?
They were like a speaker manufacturer, and I was in the service department there, so I handled a lot of troubleshooting and just kind of like general PA system kind of things. Yeah.
So your degree at Mills, your master's degree, was working on composition and audio production recording together. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because that sounds really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think the tradition there is kind of just coming out of like a lot of the history involving electronic music, where there's a lot of sort of focus on tape or things like that as a compositional tool. So there was definitely a focus on production, but it was production kind of geared towards like the studio as a compositional environment or something along those lines. So yeah, did a lot of that there.
That's fantastic. So congratulations on starting your doctoral degree this year. That's really exciting stuff. So how would you describe the work that you're doing right now?
Well, that's always difficult, I guess. I think in a more general sense, the things that I end up making are usually just, or I guess making and then showing. It usually are things that are kind of consistent with what I want the medium to do or what I want it to sound like, I guess. So in a lot of ways, that just ends up being like doing for the sake of doing and kind of seeing what the results are. And a lot of that sort of doing for the sake of doing kind of focus is sort of it's best lended towards like improvisation or focusing on like sight or specific objects and things where there isn't necessarily a huge amount of intentionality going in, but you kind of know it when you hear it or something like that, I guess. So I guess yeah, a lot of compositional sort of focus is more on figuring out where those boundaries are, I guess, with like where the recording begins and ends, or like where the piece sort of feels like it's centered on, or that sort of thing. So out of that, I guess, at least for me, a lot of the results of that kind of work tends to be towards like kind of field recording sort of things, or like lowercase, or EAI, like electroacoustic improvisation, or my sort of interests in that, but the process tends to be pretty open, I guess, in terms of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So it sounds like built into your process, there's experimentation, improvisation, and a kind of an in the moment attention to the media that you're working with. And like you said, that might be field recordings or other types of sound sources that you're pulling inspiration from live and then seeing what happens. Can you tell us, maybe just give us one or two more examples of that kind of approach? Because I think that that's an interesting one to take. So like, what are some other materials that you work with when you're finding sounds or inspiration to work with?
I well, I use a lot of like scrap electronics or like kind of everyday electronics. Just kind of operating out of the definition that an electronic instrument is like anything that receives electricity or is powered in any way. So that can also involve a lot of like kind of household things or uh, maybe audio components that aren't intended to be performed as an instrument, but still have some sort of function as audio. So when I'm using those things, I guess I'm open to the sort of acoustic sounds that they'll sort of generate in conjunction with whatever kind of electronic sounds they maybe are more intended to make. So that involves a lot of like miking and things to kind of focus on both the intended parameters that an object has and maybe the ones that result but aren't intended in its function, like the sounds of knobs turning or like relays firing or something like that can kind of result from that sort of more open approach to them.
Yeah, fascinating. So can you think of a moment at New College that was important for your development or somehow transformative for you, for your future work?
Yeah, I think the DIY and open instrument ensemble ISPs were very helpful for kind of thinking about working in group. I guess for the open instrument ensemble, it would be like working in groups in ways that were maybe more focused around kind of a collective interaction rather than something that was more informed or enforced through like a score or something like that, or coming up with ways that a score could kind of function for some sort of uh, interagency within a collective. And the DIY ensemble certainly just for building things and reworking electronics and stuff like that, which ended up being a pretty foundational part of a lot of things that I do now.
Yeah, you definitely took that idea and ran with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's been great to see that in what you've been putting out. And well, we'll get to this later, but Dylan maintains a uh, pretty active Bandcamp presence, so um, something to check out. Let's talk about the track that you submitted for this playlist, which is called 5 Cent Deposit. Tell us a little bit about the sounds in this track.
Those were a lot of different sounds that I recorded either around my house or just kind of out and about during the whole kind of coronavirus thing that's been going on. I was in Oakland at the time, so I guess the sound palette in that one has changed from what I would do now. But yeah, I guess the idea was that it was a lot of different recordings and things that I had made over time, and as I arranged them, that's just kind of how I heard them coming together over the course of a few months. And yeah, that was sort of the idea.
So how does that long gestation process impact what you end up making? I mean, the track itself is what? It's close to 30 minutes or
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah.
around 30 minutes or so.
And it has a lot of sonic detail. It's like a kind of a whole world. Um, what is it like putting together something that large? I mean, you mentioned it takes you a couple of months. How do you maintain the thread?
Um, I think that I kind of end up sort of inventing the thread or maintaining the thread as I'm putting things together, because the recordings and stuff that I make themselves aren't necessarily intended to all be part of the same piece or part of like one specific piece. But as I kind of play things back and arrange things, a lot of the form that comes out of it is just kind of like how I hear something and what I would like to hear kind of added to it, or maybe something that doesn't work that I might bury by mixing a couple other things in and changing overall volumes of things to kind of get a different mix of sounds or timbres. Uh, yeah, I think that I think about these sorts of things as like scenes a lot of the time too. So instead of having a specific form that I'm trying to reach from beginning to end. It's more focused on having these individual sections and coming up with ways to kind of transition between them. And often if you kind of keep reworking the scene and the transition between the scene, then your focus on what the scene actually is starts to change after a little while, and you start to get something that's maybe more cohesive just by reworking stuff over and over again until the sort of scene transition sort of thing kind of starts to disappear or becomes obfuscated in some way or another.
Mhm. Yeah, that extensive revision is definitely that's a useful tool.
Mhm.
It's interesting to think about it in that particular context too, where you're kind of moving between different types of sound worlds that have lots and lots of layers. Um, yeah, that's great. So what's an upcoming project that you are working on right now or something you're looking forward to?
Well, I've been working more on live coding sort of things, which feels a little bit disconnected, I guess, from what I've been talking about. But um, I've always sort of done some level of improvisation with on a laptop, usually in Macs, but some Super Collider, and I've been really kind of digging more into the Super Collider aspect of things to kind of explore that style of live coding, just as a way to kind of come up with different or newer compositional tools that I can use right now, since I'm doing a lot of things through Zoom or some style of streaming, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Live coding is a good thing to work on for a format like this,
Mm-hmm.
where things are so virtual. Yeah. Yeah. Really cool. So how can we learn more about your work?
You can look at my Bandcamp page, I guess, is where everything is kind of
Yeah.
listed, and have a little contact form. You can always email me if you want to get in touch about something specific.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I do recommend Dylan's Bandcamp page. There's some really interesting sonic work on there, and stuff that's really worth listening to. So, um, Dylan, thank you so much for taking this time with us today. It's great to catch up with you, and we wish you the best of luck at Louisiana State.
Oh yeah, thanks. It's great to be here.